Chapter 15. Mathael continues his explanation. Mathael says, "You are correct, but these two also. This thing is highly personal. You and Misha are from the same bright star in your souls. Those two are children of this earth, but with the same right to the Lord's love and mercy as you. Your souls were already closer to the spiritual at the very beginning than the souls of Rob and Boz. And there is therefore nothing to be amazed about if they, finding themselves here in such nearness to the very purest spirit, feel stranger and more uncomfortable than we, who right at the very beginning stood closer to the spiritual than they both. They will gradually begin to feel more comfortable. And now they feel much more at home already. But one day cannot give what a year can. After a year, they will feel and speak quite differently than now, when their spirit becomes more and more at one with their souls. Do you understand such wisdom?" Zar says, "Oh, I now understand that very well, for my soul has become very bright through the great suffering that we have withstood, and I now understand everything easily. Only I cannot quite handle Optima Forma in the proper way, the maiden with her travelling around the fixed stars. Although I believe the child, and in a certain way must believe her. But the how is another thing. Well, we are now, in a certain way, in the centre of the very highest, divine force. Why should things not happen in such vicinity to the very highest God, that otherwise never come to pass in the whole of infinity?" Mathael says, "With your constantly cheerful mood, you often bring things to light which say more than a whole Solomon's temple full of the most appropriate wisdom. Our Misha has just made a very useful speech as well, and we can be grateful to him for it. And so you, Brother Zar, have also represented the possibility of this girl's physical journey to several fixed stars in such a way that I can no longer doubt the possibility. It is really classically true. We only have to think where we actually are, and the possibility for everything lies clearly before our eyes, ears, hands, and feet. But the remark that one of you made, that one can imagine the endless power of the divine spirit more easily in a physical giant than in the more smaller human form of the Lord, is certainly something for the simple sensual perception, because something colossal always makes a more powerful impression on the human senses than something small. But for the purely spiritual understanding, it is nonetheless sheer nonsense. For the divine power needs no material form in order to become more or less effective, according to the extent of the material quantity. But the material itself is basically just an expression witnessing the spiritual power of the divine will, for which it is all the same to call a whole world or a grain of sand into being. What is a physical giant good for? The divine will needs only an eternally unchanging base from which to be effective in endless rays everywhere, in the endless space of the worlds, and being in the same strength and power. And to hold this holy, eternally unchanging, all-powerful base, truly, no giant body is needed. True, the Egyptians have often presented almost everything that is in any way concerned with the divinity in terrifying giant forms, in order to fool the lower classes who they wanted to keep in the dark. They were supposed to fear the divinity in terror and quake, and before the words of the priests, to tremble in all remorse like leaves before the storm. But have these giant god figures made the people better? Oh no. In time, the nation got used to the terrible figures and thought nothing more of the Sphinx's head, rearing 30 men high over the ground, and wondered more at the patience of some old sculptor who chiselled a head out of a rock of granite. Therefore, let us be cheerful that the Lord himself has now visited us in the fullest and most unveiled truth, as a very simple person, not characterized by anything particular, and is teaching us in the simplest way in the world to recognize everything about our destiny, ourselves, and him in the fullest truth. This is all we need, and we can seek counsel for eternity about everything else. Tsar says, I thank you, brother. That is very true and good. We have now mutually set ourselves up to bear good fruit in the name of the Lord and Master, and things have become beautifully light. But as I notice, everyone except us has now fallen asleep before the dawn. And I must admit that I do not feel the slightest trace of any tiredness in me. And you must all be quite wide awake as well. Everyone says, quite perfect. We've never felt so strengthened before.